Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for Independent Reading with Caroline Musselwhite. And away we go. Go ahead, Caroline.
Great. So I'm really excited to be here to talk about text types, talking about a little bit about paper books and digital texts. And so let's just jump right in. I do want to point out that AAC Girls Blogspot is one place I share lots of information related to webinars that I do and workshops around the country. And we will also be putting materials that you guys request at the Angelman Communication Training Series Facebook group. So those are a couple of ways to get more resources. The outcomes we're hoping for today, I'm going to review 3 text types for beginning readers of all ages. I'll share a few resources for print materials and also some resources for digital materials, and there's a focus on those free materials. So let's just jump in. I'm talking about the tasks of supports for independent reading. I'm also going to be sharing a few tools, print books, and digital text resources. And these are based on Maureen Never's 5 steps. So talking about self-selected reading, the reason I'm putting that up there is that that's one of the blocks from Classrooms That Work, the balanced literacy suggested by Pat Cunningham and Dick Allington. And so I'm going to be talking here about some choices and some competence within that area. Some of the issues that are included in that block, the self-selected reading, are teacher read-alouds, students reading from their own level from a variety of books, then teachers are conferencing with students, and they have opportunities to share what they're reading, not through icky, boring book reports, but just in engaging interpersonal ways. You can see that I put in red students reading at their own level from a variety of books, so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Emergent definition, the emergent literacy. Students are in the very beginning stage of literacy. There are no prerequisites. There is no such thing as not ready for. And so beginning readers need multiple types of texts, age-appropriate, engaging materials. They need electronic text often for accessibility and often for engagement as well, and literature that fits into the curriculum but at their readability level. And this is all taken from the Beginning Literacy Framework from Dr. Karen Erickson, myself, and Ruth Zilkowski, and I have shared a link to that at the Angelman Communication Facebook group. So there are 3 types of texts that are described in that document about Beginning Literacy Framework, which was supported by Don Johnston Company. And so they talk about enrichment texts, transitional texts, and conventional text. And what I see us doing a lot is focusing on transitional text for students who are struggling. And I think it's important to know that a range of text types are really helpful for our students. So we set up the start to finish literacy starters, and you can see the authors up there. By Don Johnston, were set up based on this literacy framework. So I'll give you a few examples from there and also from other resources that you can get in various places, including lots of free resources. So just to show you within the Plants series, this is an enrichment text. You can see there's a lot of language. There's more than one line, so we get to work on those concepts of print about following along, and then sweep and go to the next line, that idea that you go left to right, but then you sweep and go left to right again. You go from top to bottom of the page, etc. In the transitional book, you're only seeing one page that says, I need dirt, but it might also say, I need water, another page, I need sun. So we can see that very highly predictable text. I need food, I need dirt, I need water. What am I, a plant or a person? So that type of setup. And then in the conventional text, you can see a lot of high-frequency words. I can get a plant, and I'll talk to you about the difference between transitional and conventional because they don't look so different on this page, but there's some rules that make them really different. So enrichment text is the first that I'll talk about, and they're often the most lengthy and the most complex of the 3 types. And the reason for that is that they have purposes. The purposes are to develop language, to build background knowledge, and to support learning concepts about print. Again, you can read more from the Beginning Literacy Framework. All of this information and more is in there. Some of the features that I've pulled out of that framework are language-rich text, a variety of sentence patterns. Complex sentences are okay because this is for enrichment. We want you to hear a lot of language. There'll be blends of language structures. We might have a very complex sentence, and then we might have a short sentence that the students might be able to repeat, use as a repeated line. Language-rich graphics. So these books will have graphics that tell the story and go beyond, that are really fun. Opportunities for vocabulary expansion. We've got some great words because we know that one of the chief ways that students grow their vocabularies is by reading. And so for our students who may not be reading independently, if they're listening to these wonderfully enriched texts, then they're getting that vocabulary growth that is so important. The readability of the individual words is not critical. It's about interest and engagement. We might have a little bit of the features such as rhyme, rhythm, repetition, or predictability to create engagement, but they're not really necessary. So a perfect exemplar from an off-the-shelf trade book for enrichment text sample is Where the Wild Things Are. And this, I just pulled out one sentence from there. They roared their terrible roars. They gnashed their terrible teeth. This might be a great way for students to hear and learn words such as roared, terrible, and gnashed. So it might be some nice vocabulary supports. These aren't the real simple, easy to read words that you're going to see in the transitional text and especially in those conventional texts. It's okay to have some sophisticated multisyllabic, polysyllabic words. That's great. I'm going to read you a book called Who Sank the Boat? And for very beginning readers, this might be an enrichment book. Who Sank the Boat by Pamela Allen. Beside the sea, on Mr. Peffer's place, there lived a cow, a donkey, a sheep, a pig, and a tiny little mouse. Now, just the fact that his name is Mr. Peffer, which is kind of a fun, sounds like a fun little name, is already a clue that this is enrichment, because we'd probably call it Mr. Smith or some highly decodable word if we wanted the students who are beginning readers to read every single word. But no, we made Mr. Peffer. They were good friends, and one warm, sunny morning, for no particular reason, they decided to go for a row in the bay. Do you know who sank the boat? Okay, here's another word that's a clue. Particular, for no particular reason. That's not one of those early primer, pre-primer, Dolch kind of high-frequency types of words. But it's a great word for kids to learn. So again, we're supporting your vocabulary, and it's also making it more fun. Doesn't it sound fun when I read it? For no particular reason. Bingo. Also, look at this. There are 5 lines of text on this page. So we get that whole concepts of print thing going along. Left to right, sweep. Left to right, sweep. Really supporting concepts about print. That's something else that's enriching students. They can learn to deal with those concepts about print. Was it the cow who almost fell in when she tilted the boat and made such a din? So here we see some other examples of enrichment. So yes, there's some fun rhythm there, and there's some rhyming, but we also have some words like din. Din is an easy word to decode, but it's a word students might not know, and so there's a great opportunity for telling them, well, din just means a really loud noise, okay? So we get to help them with that. And she tilted the boat. We've got this lovely graphic that shows us what it means to tilt the boat. Again, might be a new vocabulary word. Score. No, it wasn't the cow who almost fell in. Do you know who sank the boat? There's that lovely repeated line that we could put on a Big Mac for kids who are reading for pleasure with us, and they could be the ones reading that page. But is that considerate text for students who are age 10, age 13, age 16? So I just want you to stop a second and think about that. If you're watching this with a group, put pause here and talk about what age you think this would be what Jerry Stemich calls considerate text. And so it might be at readability or listenability it might be appropriate, but it's kind of babyish. And so we have to question about 10. 13, 16, definitely not age respectful for those students. So we need to find other texts that are more age respectful. Tar Heel Reader has some wonderful books, including some great enrichment texts, particularly some good enrichment texts that connect to curriculum. So just some information about Tar Heel Reader, so in case you're not familiar with it, many books that were written expressly for students with significant disabilities. You can read them online, either silently or with a child, woman's, man's voice. You can use switches. You can download them in a PowerPoint, a Flash, an Impress. You can download them as an EPUB and open them up in iBooks. You can download them as a PowerPoint and have them on your computer. You can change them out now that they're in PowerPoint. So just really lovely, lovely books. And a huge shout out to Karen Erickson and Gary Bishop, who have made a Tar Heel Reader possible. So here's an example of one, Christopher Columbus's Journey to the New World. So I had a student who was working on an activity where he's deciding if Columbus was a hero or a villain. So we got lots of texts, and he read lots of different texts about that in the process of making that determination. Here's an example, Admiral of the Sea. Christopher Columbus was born in 1451 in Genoa, in present-day Italy. His father was a poor weaver, and Columbus worked for him. As a young boy, Columbus had little schooling. He learned most of what he knew from sailors' tales of their voyages. So you can see that this is a fairly complex text. This is not at that very easy reading level. This is certainly not a primer, pre-primer book, but it's giving us lots of great information, and it's an enrichment text in terms of the topic of Christopher Columbus. Lit2Go is this wonderful website that has a lot of other great enrichment texts that you can listen to. I'm very excited about this. I just found out about this a few months ago, and Lit2Go has books that are not under copyright anymore. They've taken those and they're reading them. You can see it and hear it, and they're just wonderful. So I'm actually going to go to the Lit2Go website and we're going to look at that. So I have pulled up on this website, so you can see I'm at the Adventures of Tom Sawyer. I chose a book, and if you scroll down, I chose chapter 1, so we can just jump in and start reading it. You'll see this bar here, and there's 15 minutes and 41 seconds of reading. We also have the text for the story there as well. What's exciting is that this is read with wonderful ideas and passion and voices, etc. So let's just listen to about a minute of it.
Sawyer by Mark Twain. Chapter 1. Tom? No answer. Tom! No answer. What's gone with that boy, I wonder? You, Tom! No answer. The old lady pulled her spectacles down and looked over them about the room. Then she put them up and looked out under them. She seldom or never looked through them for so small a thing as a boy. They were her state pair, the pride of her heart, and were built for style, not service.
So you can see that it's just a really fun, engaging reading. And so if you have students who are reading books like these in their class, this might be a great way to have that digital text, that online free digital text. So those were all examples of enrichment texts at differing levels. Transitional texts are for our transitional readers who can read and understand familiar texts such as stories for which they've had multiple exposures. They have few, if any, strategies for reading words on their own and are inconsistent in reading even familiar words across a variety of contexts. Again, this is from that beginning literacy framework. And just remember that the transitional level for typical students has progressed through rapidly. For most students with that disabilities, it kind of happens in the blink of an eye. But for many students that we work with, this transitional level is going to be years, and that's just fine. There's some fabulous transitional texts out there. So we just want to find some that are engaging, age-respectful, and appropriate text levels for your students. So let's look first at these purposes from the beginning literacy framework. To provide an increased focus on text rather than the language and graphics. So we're really making sure that you made you look. I talk about transitional text as made you look. I want your eyes on print. You're not just listening. So what I showed you earlier where you're listening to Tom Sawyer and you may not even be looking at the text, that is not what we're going to be looking at all for transitional text. We want to support students in using the skills and the understandings that they have developed through their experiences with those enrichment texts and other print-based activities, and now they start applying those to start figuring out how to read the books. We're supporting them in developing very simple word reading strategies. And the first word reading strategy we'll see is that pattern plus picture equals success. So let's look at those features that we have in these. Simple, consistent sentence structures within a single book. A high degree of rhyme, rhythm, repetition, and/or predictability. A mix of text that's beyond the reading level because that's going to help them stay engaged with text that they can read with support. A very close picture to text match if what we want is independent reading. It's okay for the stories to be as long as the enrichment books if that text is interspersed with pages for the students to read independently. So we might have a longer page that a parent or a peer is reading, and then a book with 1 to 4 words that the student is reading. So a perfect example of a transitional textbook is Brown Bear. Brown Bear, what do you see? I see a blue horse looking at me. So we've got that Brown Bear, what do you see? Do you hear the rhythm, etc.? I'll share all that in just a minute. Dear Zoo is another example where he wrote to the zoo to get a pet. They sent me a giraffe. It was too tall. I had to send it back. So very, very predictable. So let's look at those features that really provide scaffolding for our students to have success with transitional books. So rhyming, Brown Bear, what do you see? I see a blue horse looking at me. And in that earlier book, that enrichment book, we saw that in and din were rhyming. But we're going to see a lot of that in our transitional books. Not every one. Please do not think that every book has to have rhyming, because they shouldn't. We're going to have rhythm often. Brown Bear, what do you see? For older students, we might have more of a raps rhythm. It might be something like going to a party, just can't wait. Putting on deodorant, gonna look great. So can you hear how that sounds more like a raps rhythm from some of the stories that I have written? Repetition. What do you see is repeated every time we introduce a new couplet in the Brown Bear book. What do you see? I see a yellow duck looking at me. Yellow duck, what do you see? There's repeated again. So the deal is that rhyme helps us listen to the ends of words. It helps us really focus on that word ending. Those high frequency word families like in, like ed, like et. Those super high frequency word families we really focus on. Rhythm helps aids memory. We know that from research. Repetition helps students feel successful and helps them see the same sentence patterns over and over. Predictability is where we have brown bear, and then it's yellow duck, and then blue horse. So you can see that you have color animal, color B, animal B, color C, animal C. So they're very predictable things we can put into those slots. In the Dear Zoo book, we have it was too adjective, too fierce, too tall, too scary. I had to send it back. And so I sent for a noun, but that noun is a very specific noun. It's a zoo animal, such as a giraffe, such as a lion. So those are examples of predictable slots that we can fill. Simple text. We want to have a lot of words that are Dolch types of high frequency words, and simple graphics that will support them. So if we have the word giraffe, that is not an easy word to read. But if there's a picture of a giraffe, then the student who knows that pattern can figure out that it's going to say, they sent me a giraffe. I had to send it back. So let's look at another very simple one called Cat on the Mat. The cat sat on the mat. The dog sat on the mat. The goat sat on the mat. The cow sat on the mat. I hope you're looking at the cat. Keep your eyes on the cat because it's very funny. The elephant sat on the mat. The cat sat on the mat. So just a very fun, clever book. But again, what's the upper age limit for this, which this would be considerate text? And I think you're probably not going to say higher than 8. So now we need to think about how do we find other kinds of books. So here's a what's cooking book. What's cooking might be cake, not. Might be tacos, not. Might be burgers, not. Might be chili, not. Might be pizza. All right, it's pizza. So what we've got here is a slot fill. We've got the repeated line, what's cooking and not. We've got might be cake, is this that slot filler, that predictability that we're filling it with different food items. Learn to Work has some stories that might be even more age respectful. So let's look at 2 books in this series. The first one is Good Day, Bad Day. And full disclosure, this is a book that Laurel Richardson and I created, and it is sold. So Good Day, Bad Day. I had a bad day at work, but it was a good day too. Now what I want you to do is start looking for some of those books that are great for transitional. You're looking for repetition, you're looking for predictability, etc. First, I dropped some French fries. It was not pretty. Then a pretty girl came in. I dropped her burger. It had lots of ketchup. It was not pretty. There's that repetition. Next, another pretty girl came in. Okay, so now we've got, again, some predictability of pretty girl, another pretty girl. I dropped her drink. More predictability. Dropped French fries, dropped a drink. It was the biggest one. It was not pretty. Finally, another pretty girl came in. I did not drop her French fries. I did not drop her burger. I did not drop her drink. Notice that the photos are supporting. So if you know that pattern, I did not drop her blank, you can look at the picture to find out if it's French fries, burger, or drink. She asked me to sit with her on break. I guess it was a pretty good day. Pretty sweet. So you can see that that might be more age respectful for older students. But you can also look at very, very simple highly transitional books. So here's an example of a transitional book that's super easy. Do it. Fill it. Mop it. Wipe it. Lift it. Carry it. Change it. Break time. Eat it. So just again, it's an action transitional book that has just only the action word changes each time. So just examples of books that might be supportive for students. Let's look at a couple examples from Tar Heel Reader. The first one I'm going to show you is Extreme Ironing, and I'm going to actually go to Tar Heel Reader and pull that up. So here's Extreme Ironing, and the reason I want to show you in Tar Heel Reader is that I want to show you some features that I find people often forget. So I'm going to look at colors, and I'm going to make that page color black. Oh, where did the text go, you might ask? Well, that's because the text was black, and now I'm going to change the text to yellow, and now it's really popping. Isn't that lovely? And so we've got Extreme Ironing. I'm also going to choose a voice to have that read. So let's go into speech, and I'm going to choose a man's voice.
Extreme Ironing.
Actually, I'm going to go back and choose a woman's voice because I want to emulate Jane Marilyn. Jane Farrell, who's just a brilliant writer for Tar Heel Reader.
I iron at home. Some people iron in the mountains. Some people iron in crowds. Some people iron on their stomach. Some people iron while jumping, but I iron at home. I iron in the kitchen. Some people iron on their car. Some people iron on rocks. Some people iron in the snow. Some people even iron on water, but I iron in the kitchen. I iron in the laundry. Some people iron while exhaling. Some people iron in the water. Some people iron while climbing. And some people even iron in the ice. But I iron in the laundry. I iron while I watch TV. Some people iron while climbing. Some people iron while writing. Some people iron underwater. Some people iron while flying. Some people even iron while sailing. But I iron while I watch TV. I don't know why people iron in all those places. I hate ironing. What would you like to do now?
And of course we're going to go rate
How
that
do you
book
rate this book?
with 3
What
stars.
would you like to do now?
So just a wonderful example of a really fun story that you can read on Tar Heel Reader. You could also download that as an EPUB, again, with the voice or without. You could have as a talking iBook into iBooks. And the directions for doing that are at AAC Girls blog in case you wonder how to do it. Alphabet books. There are so many wonderful alphabet books. We recommend alphabet books a lot. And Tar Heel Reader has collections, and so they've already looked for collections of alphabet books. So just some really fun alphabet books to look for. They are great for transitional readers. And this is just an example of some of the wonderful alphabet books. And some of these are just about one letter of the alphabet, or they're about multiple alphabet letters. So really fun stuff. Don't forget that we have done some transitional books to support different of the core words in our Angelman communication series. So go back and look. I did Get Set for a Pet when we did the core set that had get. When we did Who Did It, we were working on the word who. I wrote the book Who Did It, and it also has the words who and it and you. So it has lots of words we practice. I couldn't find anything good on Tar Heel Reader for the word are, anything really fun, especially for older kids. So I did one for Are We There Yet? So they could talk about those fun road trips when they drive their parents crazy, saying, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? So just trying to have some fun and write some books that are age respectful for older kids and not so boring. Now we're getting into conventional texts, and conventional texts are something that I think our kids get the least of, and we really need to think about this. If your students are looking at transitional books and they're able to start predicting and they're able to know some of those repeated lines and they are able to fill in those slot filler words, those are kids who are ready to start having some conventional text also, not instead of, but in addition. So conventional readers, again, from the beginning literacy framework, can independently decode and understand unfamiliar text at their level. And so the purposes of conventional literacy are to independently apply word reading strategies. So we want you to get beyond the point of pattern plus picture equals success. We're going to take away that pattern because we want you to actually read every word. So we are minimizing those scaffolds. We really poured on the scaffolds for the transitional stage. Now we're taking those away. We're taking away the rhyme, rhythm, predictability, and repetition of whole sentences or phrases, carrier phrases, etc. We're reducing the demands of language, of text complexity, and sentence structure diversity. Now, why are we doing that? Because this is hard. We are having to read all of the words, so we're making it easier. So here are those features from that beginning literacy framework. It's simple text, simple sentence structure, minimal use of pronouns to avoid confusion, consistent sentence structures within a given book. We have remember I said don't do a lot of repeating? What I mean is you're not going to do a repetition to say like, I like the blue blank, and then each time, I like the blue car, I like the blue kite, I like the blue house. That is not what we would do for a conventional book. We might have the word blue repeated multiple times. We might, but it would not be in the same sentence. If we have I like, we're not going to say I like the. We are going to change it up, and then we'd say something like, I like the blue book. Do you like it? Jenny does not like it. And so we're having those types of things where we're taking those words and repeating individual words, but not in the same location in a sentence. So we can't just know that word number 3 is going to be like. So we really have to read the words. Very heavy use of high-frequency words and easily decodable words. So a high-frequency word, we've looked at the words in the top 330 most frequent words. in reading. We also have looked at highly decodable words, looking at that top 37, the Wiley and Durrell list of the top 37 highest frequency word endings. And you could probably figure those out. ING, sing, ring, bring, thing. ED, read, Ted, Ned, bed, wed, fed. So those high frequency word endings, we're really trying to have some words that use those, but we're not doing words like Dan the Tan Man had a fan. We're not trying to make all the words our control vocabulary, and everything in this book is the AN set, because that isn't helpful, because students need to look at how the brain is a pattern detector, not a rule applier. So if everything is about the AN, then we don't really have to look at the end of the word, because we know it's an AN book. So we're not setting it up like that, but we are having easily decodable words within that book. The length of the story is short because this is hard work. So we're not going to make this a hard, long story. We're not going to give tons of graphics and other scaffolds because we really want you, oh yes, reading the words. So let's look at a sample, the bumper cars. Come here, Dad, said James. Look at the bumper cards. Dad and James looked at the bumper cards. Nick and Kate looked at the cars too. Do you see how they have a lot of the same words? They have looked in there multiple times, and they have cars, and they have at and the, but they don't have it exactly the same. Let's look at the next one. Dad, can I go in a car? Said James. Can I go in the red car? Kate said, can I go too? So they have can I go, but they have it with other types of connections. Can I go in a car, in the red car? Can I go too? So they're just mixing it up. Kate and James are in the red car. So that's an example, again, quite young. This might be a little more age respectful. This is a What's Cooking book. What should I make today? Let's make chili. Oh my, no beans. I might make tacos. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have you following along and doing thumbs up if this is a high frequency word. You're going to make the sign for family if it's a high frequency word, family, like ed for red. You're going to pretend like you take a picture. If you're taking a picture of a difficult word, we might put in there. So if I have the word I might make tacos. So I hope you're doing thumbs up because that's a high frequency word. Might. That's one of those lovely twofers. Might is a high frequency, but it's also fairly high frequency word ending. Might, right, light, sight, etc. Make, again, that's a twofer. It's a super high frequency word. In fact, it's one of our top 40 in this Angelman communication training series. But make is also a high frequency word ending. Make, bake, rake, cake, fake, lake. Got it? Tacos. Hopefully you made the little indication that you're taking a photo. So tacos, I could have a picture of it. So we don't have to read that word. I might make, hopefully the students are reading, tacos has a picture. Rats. Well, that's one of the more difficult words in this story, and we put it in there to make it engaging. The at is a high frequency word ending, so it's a fairly decodable word. Out. Yep, very high frequency. Of. Another high frequency. Cheese. We want to have a picture of cheese on the page because that is not an easily decodable word and it's not a high frequency word, so we want a picture. How? High frequency. About. High frequency. Cake. We probably have a picture, but happily it's also easily decodable. Cake, make. So that's just an example of something you can do to look at the words and analyze them to say, first of all, is it a small number of words within the entire story? And secondly, are most of the words either high frequency or easily decodable? That's what makes a good conventional book. And if they're not high frequency or decodable, Are they picture producers? Is it something we can take a picture of, such as chili, tacos, and cheese? Another example at a bit higher level of a conventional book is about Hatchet chapter summaries. So if your students are reading the book about Hatchet, and which is a book that a lot of fifth graders read, the dynamic learning maps have taken those books and have simplified them and added lots of supports. So we have an example of a page that says, the next day, Brian saw tracks by the lake. So tracks is a fairly hard word to read, and so they've taken to decode, so you can see in the drawing that they've got tracks by the lake. It looked like an animal had buried something. He dug and found a pile of turtle eggs. So turtle eggs, you see a photo of it. He stacked them up in a pyramid on the sand. So this is a more sophisticated and more complex book, but it's a conventional book that's still much, much, much easier readability level than the original Hatchet book, and provides the graphic supports that of which there are very few in the original book. We love Patello, as you know, and so we like to add videos and pictures. We can type in with word prediction. It has computer voices. You can record your voice. It's switch accessible. You can share stories. There's lots more, but what's really exciting about it now is that you can download Tar Heel Reader books, and you can get a code, and then you can download those books into Patello. And I just heard the most wonderful idea from Erin Sheldon, who's always so creative, about how to help students be really engaged and really have a lot of fun. And so one of the things that she's done with Maggie is to download some Patello books and then use some really fun and funny voices to read those books. Now, you're not going to see this book. I'm going to be showing I Like Earrings, which is another book from our wonderful Jane Farrell, so a little shout out to Jane. And so I'm going to open up I Like Earrings, and I'm just going to have you listen to the funny voice, because what we've done is to add Patello and Tar Heel Reader. This tells how to do it. This is the steps for doing it. It's so exciting. And these are some of the voices that I have on my iPad. I've chosen Will Little Creature, Will Old Man, and Queen Elizabeth. And so I'm playing this with one of the Will voices. It's also fun to use the Will Old Man voice. Is super fun as well, because having an old man read about earrings is pretty funny. So let's just listen to this.
I like earrings. I like earrings. I like earrings.
Oh, sorry, I didn't turn the page.
I like short earrings. I like long earrings. I like shell earrings.
Isn't that wonderfully creepy? So that's a great example, and I was using the Will Old Man voice there. Reading a Tar Heel Reader book, download it into Patello, so now I could choose a fun voice to read it in and just have so much more fun with it. It's also, understandable. It's just a blast, because we want to remember at the end of the day, if kids don't like reading, we're in big trouble. So we really want to make sure that our students love reading. So possible next steps. Obviously, you could share this handout and the webinar link. That would be fantastic. You could read Facebook posts. You could go on my AAC Girls and look at some of the connections that I've put up. Please look at the balanced literacy overview that I've posted up there, the balanced literacy framework that's posted at the Angelman group. Read some books and help your child have that full diet of books, enrichment books, transitional books, and conventional books, and plan to attend next week's webinar. We hope that you've enjoyed this. I'm not doing this live, so we aren't going to have questions, but I do want to just say a very, very heartfelt thank you to the Angelman Syndrome Foundation for sponsoring this communication series. And they've done that by getting a grant from the Foster Family Charitable Foundation, which is a family foundation established in Central California. You can go to the ASF Communication Training Series, and you can link to all of the webinars we've done so far, which will be uploaded and ready for you to watch. Then go to the Angelman Communication Series Facebook group and start joining the conversation. Thank you so much for watching.